Boom, baby. Happy Saturday to you. I hope you are having an amazing Saturday and a great weekend so far. My name is Don Terrell, and I want to welcome you to another great episode of The Color of Motion, where I like to say, hey, stories come in all shades, and I highlight people of color and diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, visual effects, cartoons, and comics. Like I said, this space I am crazy about. Man, I am super excited to be back. Even though we started season 4 last week, it was a pre-recorded episode because my guest had something come up and he wasn't able to make it that day. But back live, so trying not to be a little rusty, but super excited about being back. Happy New Year, yes. Demille, Happy New Year to everybody. Hope you got your 2024 kicked off to a great start. I like to put these down here now since I'm changing this out. Got a new look. No, I don't think that works. New look, new flavor, new graphics, everything. Happy Saturday again, Demille. Appreciate you, brother, tuning in. Miss Maggie, appreciate you tuning in. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. Like I said, just super excited about being back live doing the show. Got some amazing things planned, like I've been telling you, for 2024. Let me know what you think of the new look, the new graphics, and everything. I definitely always like to get feedback from everybody just on how it looks, what they would like to see, who they would like for me to try and get on. It definitely helps me to make the show even better every time. Elizabeth, man, it has been forever since I talked with you and seen you. Appreciate you tuning in. Happy New Year to you too as well. Oh man, my brother from another mother, Mr. Jeff. I appreciate you tuning in, brother, for sure. I always love it. Definitely gotta get Jeff back on. This guy here, I love him. But make sure that you join the Facebook group community. Get plugged in, facebook.com/group/The Color of Motion. Make sure you join in to the group. We have a lot of great conversations, sharing industry news and all around fun. Definitely, like I said, we stream each and every Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, live to the YouTube channel, LinkedIn, the Facebook group, and the website for the show. So there you can check out the show live. But I always kind of encourage everybody to join the YouTube channel, get plugged in, like I said, subscribe, share. There you can check out all the other past great episodes that we've had and all the other great content that I put up on the channel. So definitely hop on over to youtube.com/Terrell and subscribe and join the community for sure. Also, what else? Like I said, been super excited about this. Like I said, I'm constantly working to try and make this the best possible show that I can make it. So your input definitely helps out, and support definitely helps out. The store is open. Come on over to the store, colorofmotion.net/swag. You can pick you up some great items there, some hoodies, shirts, mugs, and we're constantly putting new things into the store. So definitely want you to pick you up something. You can scan the barcode there. It'll take you to the store. My one request is if you pick you up something, make sure you shoot a picture of yourself, shoot it on over to me so I can share it on the show, share it on the social channels, and give you a big plug there for sure. Like I said, just super excited about, like I said, getting this episode in this season kicked off for sure. Like I said, been looking forward to this as well. Know you're going to love my next guest and what she's doing. Let's a few more shout outs here before we get this kicked off. Mr. Kenny, as always, appreciate you tuning in. Happy New Year to you there, brother. Yes, savor the flavor of the awesomeness in that. I appreciate you tuning in for sure. Like I said, without further ado, I think I got all the little housekeeping stuff out of the way so we can get this kind of show on the road and have a fun conversation. All right. We are back. And like I said, before we get kick started, definitely want to give a shout out to today's sponsor of the show, GainsCon Film Festival. Super excited about this. It's going to be July 11th and 12th. At the Art House in Las Vegas. So I'm super excited to be a part of that this year. Going to be streaming The Color of Motion live from there. So if you are an independent film director or you love sci-fi and horror, definitely this is going to be a great event to check out for sure. So super excited about being part of GainsCon. Barry Gaines and his group are putting it on, and they asked me to be a part of it and live stream from the event. So I'm super looking forward to it as well. Miss Amanda, appreciate you tuning in and showing up. Happy New Year to you as well. So without further ado, let's get this started off. My next guest is an Asian American writer and creator. And growing up, she explored musical theater, fashion design, art, and novel writing. Then chose to combine these with her love for storytelling through animation. She's especially passionate about stories around the themes of identity, culture, family, following dreams, and fighting injustice, set in a hopeful and magical world. She is currently a production assistant on Netflix's JENTRY CHAU versus the Underworld at Titmouse Animation, as well as part of the leadership team at Asians in Animation, creative team chair and writers group lead. She also has written for PBS Kids' upcoming animated series, SKILLSVILLE, formerly MASHOPOLIS, and previously she trained in the PBS Kids TPT screenwriting program and was a semi-finalist for the Universal Animation Writing Program and Walt Disney Imagineering Imaginations Design Competition. Some of her side quests include working at Disney World, making YouTube videos and podcasts, set design for theater, being a high school and middle school English history art teacher, and voice acting. Bonus interests include reading, mythology and world culture, puzzles and escape rooms, cooking and food, video games, and arts and crafts. As you can see, she likes to do a lot of stuff. Everybody, please help me welcome my very special guest and friend, Miss Saira Umar. Saira, appreciate you so much for coming on The Color of Motion and being part of this show. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I am doing amazing. I've been so looking forward to this episode for a while, ever since we connected. I've been looking forward to getting you on, really diving deeper into your journey through this industry and the things that you've experienced and learned along the way. Uh, I really would like to know what kind of initially sparked your interest in this space that you're in. I mean, as we see, you got a lot of interest. You love doing a lot of creative things. But what kind of got you down this path that you're on?
Yeah, so like I've said in my bio, like I've always liked reading and writing, and then my mom got me into musical theater so that I could get out of my shell more, be less quiet, and so unfortunately I liked it too much, and I was like, the inside of these stories that I've been reading about and like help them come to life. So that's where I got like the showmanship aspect and then the story aspect. So bringing those together, and then Disney World used to have this like animation academy. You would go and draw the characters, and so I would do that, and I would be like, oh, hey, I can draw somewhat. So like started bringing all these like passions and interests together. And then in college, some of the artists who worked on The Good Dinosaur came to talk with us, and that kind of helped me see like this is a career path. People work in animation and make these things happen. And so I was like, all right, I'm switching my major. I'm animation, and I thought like I have to draw to be in animation. So I became an art major, studied art, and only after graduating I found out there's so many other jobs. So
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
started pursuing other jobs in animation.
Yeah, yeah. And that's interesting that you say that because I don't think a lot of people realize that. They think I have to draw or I have to animate or, I have to be a modeler or, some one of the big ones as opposed to there's so many other different positions, that are involved in putting animation together that they don't realize that um, is that I mean, is that what you found? And does that surprise you that, like I said, we kind of have that myopic view of what we need to do to be in this space?
Yeah, I mean, I think animation is a niche industry. Like it's already like an interest that not everybody has. Like a lot of I think the general public might see animation as like something for kids. And so then that is like a stigma on top of that, like so people don't think it's a career path. They're like, oh, that's like a kid's thing. And then on top of that, it's like you see the art. So you're like, that's what the job is. And you see all these stories of these storyboard artists and directors who they make their own shows, but you don't hear about all the other jobs in the back. So I think
Oh
it's
yeah,
pretty common talking to people. They don't know all the jobs that are in animation.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Like I said, from HR to recruiting to just all the other showrunner, all the other different positions. How did your parents kind of help encourage your passions? Because, like I said, you were in all these different things that you did: theater, fashion, design. Did they kind of encourage you to just explore things? And like you said your parents kind of got you into it to kind of get you out of your shell, type of thing. And obviously, that kind of worked. But what other things did they do to kind of help encourage you along the way in this journey?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're necessarily like thrilled that I went into a creative. I think they're happy that I didn't go after being like a theater actor because that was like even more risky. So they're like, this is slightly safer, but they're like, at least you're at a desk job, at least you're getting a 9 to 5. But they're still like, you can always come work, and be a scientist, be a doctor. Like there's always time you can switch back. So I think it's just like knowing in yourself that this is what you want to pursue, and then finding ways to like show your parents like I can make this a reality, and I have proof that I can do this because I got this job or I
Yeah,
did this thing that shows that like it's valid, it's real.
yeah, yeah. So you didn't have any other type of fallback career that you thought about doing, or degree that you thought about getting?
When I started out as a musical theater psychology major, so psychology was kind of the backup. But with that, like I always found myself more of like psychoanalyzing like characters and bringing it back to the storytelling. And I was like, I don't necessarily want to be a therapist. Like I found like the research and those experiments like that was cool, and so I was like, I can do that with like writing. I can experiment with people and scenarios through writing and explore that and research that. So I don't know. I think ultimately I knew I had to be in a creative path. And that's kind
Yeah,
of how it has to be. You have to be like, this is my thing.
got you, got you. So do you have uh, a degree in any particular, or in this space or any other particular space? Do you have a degree?
Yeah, my bachelor's is in studio art, which is not the most marketable degree. So I have to, tell people like I studied other things besides just art in college. But
Oh man! And with that, do you feel like having a degree gives you an advantage of kind of coming into this industry? I know um, you're not like storyboard artist or animator, or things like that that have a demo reel, or artwork that they could show. Where I think they're looking more at whether or not you can do the work and the quality of your work, as opposed to the degree that you may have gotten. Because obviously there are people that are in the industry that are animators and illustrators and artists that they just have a natural talent for it, and they're don't have a degree on it. Do you feel like a degree kind of gives you an advantage over those ones that don't necessarily have a degree?
I don't necessarily think so. I think especially this industry is one that you don't need a degree or a piece of paper to say that like you can do it as long as you have like the portfolio and you can show that you've done the work on your own. But I think it benefits like going to school of any kind, just like can help certain types of people if that's your best way of learning. Like for me, I knew I don't have the discipline to sit in a room and draw for 8 hours a day unless there's a professor watching me and there's homework. So I was like, that's why I was like, I'm going to get a degree in art so that I can improve my art under the guidance of somebody else. Otherwise, like, I'm not going to sit there and do it. But I think it's like college helped me with some of the like soft skills and stuff, and just being more comfortable talking to other people in like an adult level. And it's like that's your time to like I'm no longer a student, I'm no longer a kid in like the high school sense, like I'm now a professional person, and it's a good transition.
Yeah, yeah. Um, First, tell us, like I said, you're a production assistant. First, kind of give us an overview of what a production assistant does, and then can you tell us kind of what your biggest takeaway from doing production has given you?
Mhm. So my show is organized a little bit more like a movie in that we split up by department. Most TV shows split up by episode. And so for me, that's part of the art department. And so the art department, I was basically in charge of the artists in pre-production. So not animators, just character designers, background designers, and colorists and painters and stuff like that. So what we would do is go through episodes, call out what assets need to be designed, and then hand those out to the artists, help them with their assignment lists, and help them present their stuff for review, and then collect the notes, give them back, and really just make sure that the production's still moving in a timely manner. And I think a really big takeaway from being just in production is like I'm able to see the whole pipeline from the script and the writer's room all the way to now seeing the animation come back and seeing like how these decisions in the script and these decisions in the design are now like affecting the final product. And oh, like we used too much blue and we didn't think about this character's hair correctly, and so now we have to redo it. So it's like learning all that stuff is really valuable, and only things that like production and then like higher levels get to see. And just seeing how a show is made.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you're one of those ones that, like I said, wants to kind of learn the whole pipeline, being in those kind of production assistant producer roles really gives you a broad view of point A all the way to point Z, getting it from beginning to end. Um, Being a screenwriter as well, what do you feel like some of the stories that you've seen so far or that you've watched lack?
Yeah, I think in a lot of things I've been seeing, especially like recently more so, it's like a lot of them, I think studios are afraid to say something deeper a lot of times because like it might lose some of the audience, whether that's like not what they want because people just want happy escapism, lighthearted stuff,
Yeah,
or people want to be like controversial, or they don't think their audience is smart enough to like understand it. Like they don't want to get into deeper topics, and so I'm always someone who loves deep topics and loves like media that has a message and a purpose, and
yeah,
so that's what I
yeah.
wish we would have more of.
And I think that it goes a long way what you said because, like I said, I think a lot of people think that animation and this kind of medium, like you said, is for kids and not really a way to dive into deeper subjects and feel like you know kids and even adults can kind of get it. And I think um, Sesame Street was a great example of that. They had such a simplistic medium in puppets and what they did, but their subject matter was a deep subject matter. And I think Jim Henson mentioned it once. Why Sesame Street was so successful is they didn't pander down to kids. And do you feel like that's your thought that we kind of tend to pander down and try and keep it on a simplistic level? Some of the things that we put out.
Yeah, I definitely feel like sometimes studios or they want to cater to like the lowest denominator to make sure it's like accessible for everyone, but I think there does need to be a space also for like other levels, like not just like the easy stuff that's easy to digest. Sometimes it's good to have things that are harder to digest or more challenging that takes time for people to understand or like and come around to. Like those things might also have better sticking power, that in like 5 years you're still thinking about that one movie that you saw and like that changed your life.
Yeah, yeah. And as a screenwriter as well, and just coming out of the writers strike, what was kind of your takeaway from that whole period of the screenwriter strike and just the issues that were coming up in regards to screenwriters?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was interesting as an animation writer to see like that was mostly a live action strike or
Yeah,
like adult animation, being like the Writers Guild of America. So it's interesting that a lot of the like language regarding animation was like, oh, like we don't want to become what animation is. It's like animation's already kind of this dystopia in a way that like we have these mini rooms, we have all freelance structures, we don't have staffs, we don't have any like roles in the writer's room besides like staff writer and story editor, and we don't get paid as highly, all these things. So it's interesting that like now tags contracts coming up, and so we definitely were looking at WGA and seeing like what did they bargain on, and like can we like use what they've done to say like, okay, this is what's fair, can we get something similar.
yeah, yeah. Thought it was. I'm glad it's over, but definitely thought it was a very challenging time for writers. But I'm glad we came through it, and hopefully, and writers for animation can pull some of the things that was strides that were made during that into their cause as well. You're a part of Asians in America in animation. um, in that group. How has being a part of that group helped you and encouraged you even more?
Yeah, it's helped me so much. I think when I joined, I was very much like isolated because I was like on the East Coast. I didn't know anyone in the industry, and joining that was more of like there's people out there like me who are also looking for work in animation, and getting to actually talk to people who work in the industry and then make connections, make friends, and build a community. And then also on top of that, I volunteer with them, so that's like being able to jump into a leadership position and being able to try out things that I wouldn't be able to do or get paid for in like a day job. So it's like now I get to like be a leader of a team and review art and give notes and practice doing all these skills that I won't be able to do for a while in my career, and get that experience ahead of time. And it's like a safe space. And then also being able to help the newer generations and like talking to high schoolers and college students and being like, um, teaching them about the industry and answering their questions and stuff. It's like so cool to just see them all grow also.
Yeah, and being a part of the group AIA, what do you feel is the kind of consensus from all the members and people that are a part of it in regards to diversity and representation and how it's either changed or there's still issues and things like that? What's kind of the overall feeling? Because I know kind of just, and there's so many different ones. There's black and animated, um, Asians in anime. It seems like every group has this kind of group within that to kind of pull together people within their community. What's been kind of the feeling that you've gotten from just the members that you've talked to about where diversity has gone to this point?
Hmm. I mean, I think we've been a little bit successful in getting more like diversity and awareness, especially the last couple of years. Like when AIA started, when Rise Up started, when all these organizations started, it was like kind of during the pandemic time, and it's uh, I think we still have a long way to go,
Yeah,
but at least like we're starting there. And I think it's been interesting once I've been joining the industry to see like it's not just about getting in, it's also about staying in. It's about finding leadership and being able to move into the leadership positions that really moves the needle. And all of the like most successful instances I've seen of more diverse progress is when there's a diverse person in the leadership position who's able to like pull the lower like
yeah,
people up and like bring them with you.
yeah.
And they're the champions too.
So have you started to see, I guess, more and more Asians in executive roles where they are able to green light this or really kind of champion Asian stories more? Because, like I said, while, and this is my thought, like I said, I'm not, hot in the industry, but while, just from, my point of view and observation, we are starting to see, like I said, a lot of people on the kind of production level, animators, showrunners, that type of thing, start to come into the industry. I still feel like there's a really big gap in the executive space where you got those people that will champion those scripts and those stories that bring a more diverse perspective and a deeper perspective. Have you come across a lot of Asians kind of in starting to get into those more executive roles?
Um, I don't think there's too many yet. I think I've come across a couple, and that's because like we look for them and we seek out those people. But I think once you look at the bigger picture of like everybody and seeing like the small slice of the pie that we still are, it's like okay, there's still room to go. And I think some of it's just time and like waiting for them to like bring new voices in, and some of it's just like giving people a chance. I think it's hard when nobody wants to take a chance on a new voice, whether that be like new for reasons or any other reason. Like just a different voice is always like risky in the studio's eyes, and so they want to play it safer. And it's convincing them that like you should take a chance on training new people and mentoring new people up.
Yeah, yeah. Now you work for Titmouse and done work for Netflix and that. Do you find it better to kind of work for those more smaller studios as opposed to say a Disney, working at Disney or Sony or some of the bigger companies? Do you prefer kind of those smaller agencies where, like I said, you may get more of an opportunity, not only to work, you know, on a whole project and really kind of see the whole project, but just being able to move up and kind of, get into those higher level positions.
Um, I mean, I think yes and no. I think like the smaller studios are now getting bigger and bigger. So it's like Titmouse is a small studio now. It's like slowly getting bigger, and also all the big studios are now outsourcing to studios like Titmouse. So like we make shows for Disney and Nickelodeon and Netflix and all that. And I think when I joined, it was at a time where like it was still like not yet blowing up as much as it is now. So it's like I was given a chance versus some of the other studios that I had interviewed for. I definitely felt like they were like, "Oh, you're too green," or "You don't have enough experience," and so they always went with people who like had done the internship or had connections at the studio. Versus like Titmouse, I just applied and was able to get a job from just applying. But now I don't know if that's as much of the case because there's less opportunities and more people, and it seems like people aren't moving up, so there's like a bottleneck of people trying to get into the industry right now. So it's, I think, challenging across the board to
Yeah,
get opportunities to move up.
yeah, yeah. And do you feel like, studios such as Titmouse and other maybe independent, smaller studios are kind of more willing to take a chance on the stories that they tell and the characters that they put out, even though, like I said, they'll usually end up going to bigger companies for distribution and getting it out there. But do you feel like they're more quicker to kind of embrace those kind of, like I said, more meteor stories, more edgier animations and things like that than say a Disney or, like I said, a Sony would outright do.
Yeah, I think in a way, it's like they don't have the reputation, and it's like, it's like people always are like, oh, like it's a Pixar film, and so then it's like you have this reputation that you don't want to break, and so then you have to be like super careful, and you just become more and more careful. Versus people like when you say like I work at Titmouse, people don't immediately tie things to it, so it's like you don't have any preconceived notions that you're trying to hit or break. And I think also they take more chances, I think, internally within Titmouse, and then Titmouse can use their relationships with studios like Netflix they have a deal with, and convince Netflix by being like, "Hey, look, we have all these artists already who can do this. We have proof of concept." And so I think Scavenger's Reign, which just came out, which was a show that Titmouse like gave them a proof of concept. So then that's like what sold HBO on, "We're gonna make this."
Awesome, awesome. Um, to this point, what's been kind of the most challenging thing for you in your journey along the way?
I think it's just like a lot of people, it's like dealing with factors that are outside of your control, and dealing with like timing is a huge aspect of being in this industry. That like, like right now is not a good time to join the industry, right? And then you're like, well, how long is it going to be until things get picked up, things get greenlit? And it's like it could be a couple of years, and to you, you're like, that's a couple of years of my life, and I'm the age I wanted to do this by this age, and it's like the industry doesn't care what your personal timeline is, that it has its own timeline, and you have to meld into that timeline. So you're like, all right, like I joined at a good time, but now it's not a good time. So now I'm kind of stuck where I am until things pick up again. And
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, well, I mean, what are your thoughts about? Because I always say that this is a great time to be a creator in the sense that we have all these channels out here that will allow us to get our content out there without necessarily or immediately getting into a Pixar or a Disney or Sony or something like that. It's different, I guess, for your position of production assistant, but as a screenwriter, You know, you have these channels like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and all these um, outlets to, like I said, get your content out there. What are your thoughts, and what do you tell, say, other younger people, especially, like I said, writers or animators or creators, to really not wait on trying to get into these studios because, like you said, there are so many people rushing to get into these studios to get a position.
Yeah, I think it's part of it is like knowing yourself and what your goals are and like what's important to you. So for some people, their goal is like, I want to work for Disney, and like that's it. And like, I will be any position in Disney. That's my goal. Other people, it's like, I want to tell my story, and I don't care if it only reaches one person or millions of people. Like, I want to get it out there and make it and say, like, I made that and have something. And so if that's like more of your priority, then I think it's great. And it's like then you have all the power to like control that, like I can make this. If your goals are just like I want to work at Disney, I think it's more frustrating because that's something like you can't necessarily control. So I agree, like it's a good time that if you're someone that's just like I want to put my stuff out there no matter what, then like you have all the tools that you can do that. And I think with about like timing, it's just about like being ready and staying ready so that when opportunities come, like you have everything you need, like you have your scripts ready, your portfolio ready. I think it's always like people will procrastinate. That's I think human nature is to like put things off until you need to, but
Yeah,
it's like you need to find the fire and do it when it's hard, because you don't know like that's the thing that you need to get to the next step, and if you're not ready, they're going to look to the next person.
yeah, yeah. Well, what are some of the kind of stories that are out there now that you've seen? Um, not no, not or may have worked on. I will say that, or may have worked on that's really kind of been a great example of Asians, in this space. Have you seen animations or what kind of ones that have you seen that's really been a positive thing that you've really enjoyed watching?
Hmm. It's kind of tough. I mean, I think we still have like definitely a long way to go with Asian representation, especially non-East Asian representation. I think there's a lot of focus on that, and like that's also who's maybe like more palatable to the general market is like because people watch like anime and K-drama and K-pop, and those are the popular things. Those are the things that are getting made, and it's like I'd love to see more stories of South Asians and Southeast Asians and stuff that isn't just amalgamated. I think a lot of people look at Avatar as like the Last Airbender as like a great Asian show. It's just like better to have authentic voices too. So it's something that even though like we all love that show, it's hard to get a show that is like great representation on screen and off screen because um, the people behind the scenes don't like we don't have enough Asian people behind the scenes who are experienced enough in leadership for them to be given a chance to tell their authentic stories without having to like water it down for general audiences, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah. So when you when you sit down to do your writing, what's kind of your process for pulling a story together or just screenwriting a story?
Yeah. I'll make it an analogy to food because I think like it makes it easier to explain in a way. It's like I have like cravings of like a certain like flavor that I'm going for, right? It's like I want something that is like sweet or something that is more salty. And so it's like whatever you're creatively craving, I think you just start thinking about like, okay, what specifically do I want the most right now? What kind of like vibe and world do I want to live in? So if it's let's say like a fantasy world, then it's like you start like narrowing it down and then you like gather all your ingredients, which is like doing the research, thinking about what characters go in there, what pairs well together, what will make it interesting and have depth. And then I kind of like put it all together and then I like put it in the oven and I just let it like marinate and let it sit and think about it while I go. other things, and I go and experience life, collect some other seasonings, and like learn more. When it's ready, it'll like come out of the oven, and I'll be like, okay, I'm ready to like present this to the world, and like hopefully it's a good and like satisfying meal. That's what other people want to eat right now.
That is a great analogy for sure. For everybody just jumping in, we're having an amazing conversation with my friend Saira Umar, production assistant, screenwriter. Um, what are some of the stories you would like to tell? Like I said, you know, we just talked about Airbender, and I think the overriding thing that a lot of different groups are experiencing, telling these more deeper stories, like it's so much more to us than the stuff that's typically shown. What are some of the stories that you would like to tell that we don't know about when it comes to culture and your community?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I'm of mixed heritage, so I think I would love to see more mixed representation and people who come from multiple different cultures and backgrounds, and what it's like to like not even fit in with your family in a way. It's like you look at your mom's side and your dad's side and you don't look like either of them. So like that's a story that I definitely think is like personal to me that I would love to tell. Let me see. I think there's like a we want to first I think get like the stories about being, you know, like Asian, and then you want to also get stories that are of an Asian person that has nothing to do with them being Asian, or
Yeah,
like not just about their culture. And I think
yeah,
that's like another level. And I think then it's like putting like Asians in different like scenarios, like in fantasy movies, like having like an Asian princess and an Asian prince and like whatever like tropes and things like that. So it's like so it becomes that you like transcend just what you're like the box that you were put in. That makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. You know, uh, makes total sense for sure. Let's get some comments up here. I might have to move this, but we'll move it down here. Mr. Gabe, appreciate you tuning in. What's up there, my brother? Happy New Year to you. Miss Elizabeth, feel that so much with the comments that you made. Mr. DeMille, I wish I would have known that before pursuing a degree in animation. I'm assuming on how challenging it is. It's the, even and it's funny because it seems like um, there's so much new stuff coming out, but you're constantly reading about all these layoffs from this studio or that studio. Um, what are your thoughts on that? And I guess most studios, like you said, with Disney and stuff, they're outsourcing that. So they usually just kind of ramp up or ramp down depending on the project that they're working on. But I always found that interesting. Like I said, there's a lot of new stuff coming out, but you're constantly hearing about, like I said, all these layoffs that are going on.
Yeah, I think it's like animation takes a long time to make, and it's like people come on and off projects at different times. So it's like at first it's like the writers are there for a couple weeks and then they leave, and then the artists are there for a couple months, then they leave, and then it's the retake artists and retake animators come on and then they leave. So for the artists, it's a lot more turnaround and it's a lot shorter gigs, and then for people in production, we're in projects for longer. Um, but I think it's like by the time shows come out, it's like already been 2 or 3 years since people have worked on it. So I think
Yeah.
right now it's like you're seeing a lot of stuff coming out that hadn't been worked on for a couple of years. So that's why like you can see like there's a lot of layoffs right now, but like they're still putting out stuff. And I think a lot of companies just want to be saving money as much as possible and outsourcing. And so when you work at a smaller studio, it's like your pay is going to be a lot less because it's like they don't have to pay as much, and so it's like the standard of living kind of stays the same at these smaller studios, and it's like we're getting paid what people were paid 10 years ago at a bigger studio, and they can get away with it because they don't have that name and reputation to uphold. And they're like, oh, it's a small studio, it's new, they don't have a lot of money, things like that.
Yeah. Now, like I said, we just had mentioned about it, really being tough to get into the industry. Now, how was it for you? Once you graduated and got your degree and moving into the industry, was it for you to find kind of a home space as opposed
Yeah.
to this kind of wandering or jumping around that a lot of artists and creators tend to do in this industry?
Yeah, it took a long time. I graduated and then couldn't find a job at all. Was applying for like any type of job, and then took like a year or two to even get interviews and get to talking to people in the industry. And I think the big thing that helped was talking to people in the industry and learning more about how it actually works. And then I got my first interview, and that was 2 years before I landed my first job. So it's like took me then 2 years of interviewing and interviewing at multiple studios, and it's like, they're always like, oh, you're great, but like someone has just a little bit more experience, or someone has a friend of a friend who already works here who like gave them a reference. So I think is, yeah, very very a lot of persistence and a lot of rejection, and then it's like was so difficult. And then when I got my job at Titmouse, it was so easy. It was like I interviewed, and then like, well, I applied and I got an interview like in a couple days, and then I got an offer like the next day. And I was like, whoa, it's that easy to get a job. This is the one that's meant for me because it's easy all of a sudden, and it's not like a struggle, and I'm not like conflicted about, oh, like, do I want this job? Are they going to even take me? Getting rejected? Yeah.
Well, did you have when you finally got into Titmouse and stuff, did you have what a lot of people like to call imposter syndrome, or was it easy transition where you felt like, hey, I'm here, I can do this job, and I can be great at this job and get it done? Or did you kind of go through your period of, wow, I'm here, can't believe you're at this point and feeling like, can I do this, and can I really deliver on what they're looking for?
Yeah, I think by the time I got to Titmouse, I was more confident in myself. And I think that's kind of like the give and take of it taking so long for me to break in, is that like I was able to like really hone in on who I was, what I wanted, what I knew how to do. And I think at the beginning when I was first interviewing, I lacked a lot of that confidence, and that probably led to me not getting some of the jobs because I wasn't selling myself in the right way. And then by the time I got to my job, I was like, I know what I'm doing. So I had more knowledge or experience of like the animation industry than some other people who were just starting out. So I felt like, I can do this, and everything that they were telling me and everything that was being introduced to me all felt familiar. It didn't feel like a whole new world I was being thrown into.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Mr. Miles, get ready for the truth. Saira is persistent for sure. And you just mentioned about selling yourself. Was that something that, like I said, obviously you didn't kind of realize that, early on? Kind of tell a little bit or talk a little bit about that, because I don't think that's anything that somebody coming into the industry kind of necessarily thinks about. They think the work itself, their work itself, is enough to get them the job and get them into the company.
Yeah. One of my first interviews was for the Universal program, and that interview was so quick, and I was just giving them like the bare minimum answers, and then at the end I was like, what else can I have done better? And they're like, well, tell us more about yourself. We want to get to know you. That's why we're having this interview with you. So that like started turning some gears in my head, and then as I went through these interviews more, then I'm like, okay, I need to like show who I am besides just a worker, because I'm going to spend so much time with these people. I'm going to work with them. I'm going to become like part of the family. So it's like I have to be a good fit. And I think the thing that helped me the most was when I started interviewing people on the other side, for Asians in animation volunteering, and seeing like, okay, like I'm interviewing like 40 people. How do I remember who's who? And it's like those people who are really sure of themselves and know what they want. Those are the people who are easier to help, and the people who you are like, okay, I want to spend time with you because like you know where you want to go. I don't have to like do that hard work with you because you've already done it and reflected on yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And do you feel like most kind of up and coming artists don't realize that 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 it is about more when you're interviewing culture fit? You know, whether
Hmm.
you fit within the culture of the company and stuff, and they don't really present themselves in that kind of personable way. Do you feel like a lot of young artists just kind of don't get that or aren't kind of versed in that skill?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's something that I struggled with too because I was like, like what's wrong with me? Because people were like, oh, if you don't get a job, you're not the right fit. And I was like, what does that mean? And they're like, well, it's not about your resume. They already liked your resume. That's why they're interviewing you. It's about like your personality. And I was like, what's wrong with my personality? And it's like it's nothing wrong with your personality. It's just about like how you're going to work with that team and like how did you talk about things and it did it mesh well with the way that they talk about things and they work. And same with being an artist, it's not just about personality fit but also like your art style fit and like can you draw in this style. And that's I think a little easier to understand of a way that's like your art is not bad just because it's not this style of SpongeBob or The Simpsons or whatever. It's
Yeah,
just not the right style.
yeah, just doesn't fit in with what we do and what we create, type of thing. Um, was that something that immediately clicked with you when you got the job at Titmouse? What was the thing that kind of, or even did you even kind of ask them, almost like a debrief? You know, what was it about me that made you pick um, me for the job? Was that something you thought about?
Yeah, I think it's you'll know in your gut that it's the right fit. And it's like when before I got the job, they in the interview they were selling to me the show that I was like, it's a horror show. It's very scary. And I was like, I don't know. I don't do horror. I don't mess with any of those types of things. Like I don't watch that stuff. I was like, I'm not gonna fit in. I'm not gonna make friends. They're all gonna talk about whatever scary movie came out and I don't watch that stuff. And then like the first day they were like, here's the animatic, and I watched it and I was like, oh my gosh, this show is like exactly my taste. And so it's like they knew that I was a fit without me even knowing like things that I said in my interview because I was like, oh, I like anime, I like this, I like fashion, I like this. And then they knew like those were things they were looking for as the right fit that I didn't know I was checking off. Versus some other shows I interviewed for, I was like, there was something in me that was like, oh, I don't know, like this would be a cool show to work on, but like, do I really want to work for this? Or like, does that really fit who I am? And so then at the end of the day, I was glad that I didn't end up getting those jobs because it wasn't the right one for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what has been the best advice that somebody's given you along the way that's really kind of served you and helped you?
I think it's just knowing yourself, knowing, um, I guess, let me think about how to phrase it, like knowing when something's right for you and not letting anyone stop you from it in a way. So it's like if people are saying like, oh, you're not ready for this, but if you feel like you're ready, then you just take that chance on yourself. And then also like not comparing yourself to others because everyone's journey is different, and just because something was right for one person doesn't mean it was right for you. And if you look over and someone looks like they're so much further ahead of you, it's like you're just gaining momentum, you're just like building up and finding your right path, so then when you're ready, like you'll be able to shoot off on your correct path.
Yeah,
Those types of things help me a lot.
yeah, yeah. And with that, when a nugget is dropped, I always like to put a bomb on it. But really, kind of like you said, knowing your own journey and your path is yours and yours alone, and not to compare yourself with what anybody else is doing um, on theirs. Do you feel like that's the kind of the thing with a lot of the, like I said, young people that you may interview or talk with, that they're kind of comparing their work or what they're doing with what somebody else has done or is doing? And
Yeah,
do you
I
feel
mean,
like that's a downside of social media? We're all about comparing ourselves and what others are doing.
yeah, social media really like highlights what other people's achievements are, and you don't see the struggle. And so you see like, oh my god, this person's so successful, they're doing so much, they're part of this, they have these jobs. And it's like seeing all of it laid out like that, but you're not seeing all the work and or like what led them there. It's also like you compare, like things become numbers of like, oh, this person broke in like 1 month after they graduated, this person did this thing like so much faster than me or whatever. And um you just got to know like everything's meant for you, you know, like nothing that is meant for you is going to pass you by, is what people
Yeah,
say.
yeah, and I'm a big proponent of everything happens for you in your proper time
Hmm.
as well. Uh, Mr. Miles, for clarity, my previous comment was regarding Saira's journey securing her first position in the industry. Her persistence is an inspiration. And I think you have to be persistent if you want to be in this industry, in any industry, in anything you do. You have to show a lot of persistence if that's what you want to do. Um, obviously, the big buzzword and the big thing now is AI, and what's going on in AI. How do you see AI, and how do you see how it affects what you do as a production assistant and a screenwriter? Obviously, screenwriting more because of Chat GPT and this and that, but overall, what's kind of your thought on this kind of I won't say invasion, but just this explosion in AI and how people are really grabbing onto it?
Hmm. Something that stuck with me was when I told one of my relatives who is like a doctor, comes from a bunch of doctors. When I said like I want to go into writing or art, they were like, "That's a great choice. That's like a job that won't be replaced by AI," compared to like their jobs as doctors. Which I was like, I don't know about an AI doctor, but I think there's some truth to that. Like I think human creativity and the human experience can never be replaced, and so like the creative aspect, I think like shouldn't feel threatened by AI because it's you can't replicate it. I think productivity wise, like there's some tools that are automation that can help us. I think some of the things I do as a production assistant, like it would be easier if we could figure out a way to automate it. But we just have to be careful with like how we use these tools, make sure that they're not replacing humans, they're making our lives easier, and like the technology is not outpacing our ethics and our ability to grapple with like how we should use them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you see? I mean, what are your thoughts on those ones? Because, like you said, it is. I view it as a tool to help to make a task or your job a little easier. But those ones, because we have heard about those ones that just use Chat GPT to write a script, and it's a script. They don't use it, I guess, as a ideation tool or iteration tool, but they just take what comes out of it. Or those ones that feel like, okay, I could just prompt something in AI and get a script out, and I'm a screenwriter type of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
I
you
think
know,
people who are looking to do shortcuts and do it the easy way are going to find a way to do shortcuts, whether it's using AI or not. Like there's people who trace images, there's people who like, and I think doing these shortcuts are okay as like a learning tool to study, but you can't be like monetizing it, claiming it as your own. And then eventually you have to grow out of it and not just be like derivative of other things, but be your own thing and create things from yourself.
yeah, yeah. Um, well, as we, like I said, for everybody just joining in, we've been having a fun conversation with my friend Saira Umar, production assistant and screenwriter. Uh, what advice would you give, or what advice do you give to the younger generation that's coming up into this industry? And why do you feel like there is this explosion into the industry, making it hard, to actually get into the studio because there are so many people vying to get into the space?
Yeah, it's reflecting on what's important to you. Like, is it telling your story? Is it getting into a certain studio, and then focusing on what you can control? I think it's like focus on like all right, well, I can't make my script get made by other people, but like I can try to make it myself. I can write a script myself. I can apply to like 10 jobs, and even if I don't hear back from them, at least like I applied and I put myself out there. I think, you know, don't let people stop you from pursuing your dreams. Uh, Things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And just us wrapping this up, before we go, definitely, have you thought about kind of either, you know, partnering with other people to put something together outside of Titmouse, your own thing, your own story, personal, story that you may have written? Is that something that you thought about or would like to do, um, moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I've done so in the past with actually Miles in the chat. We've worked on developing like a pitch before, and it's something that I want to do in the future is work on my own pitches and work on my own projects that are outside of just my day job, because I think, I mean, in this industry, it's so turbulent. There's always downtime. It's like you got to make your own stuff too. And not everyone's going to get a show from Disney or a show from wherever. So it's like find your own outlet for your creativity. You got to. Otherwise, you're going to be burnt out and you're going to be miserable in your job. If you're like, I have an idea, but I'm not doing anything with it.
Oh man, nah, I so agree with that, for sure. Saira, this has been an amazing conversation. I'm so glad we've had the chance to connect, and so thankful that you agreed to be on the show and part of the Color of Motion family. And can't thank you enough. And so I want to really give my thanks for you coming on, sharing your journey. Definitely looking forward to having you come back on the show and grace us with your presence again.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Everybody, like I said, and if you could hang out in the green room for just a second while I close out the show, I would appreciate it. But everybody, please help me thank again my friend Saira Umar for coming on and just making a great second episode for season 4. So thank you, Saira. Hang out for just a second while we close this out. Wow. This has been a fun conversation for sure. Mr. Miles, Dr. AI sounds like a perfect series for Titmouse. Yeah, it does sound like a good series for sure. So definitely hoping that you'll, expand out on that for sure. I'm humbled. Saira, I'm always keeping an eye on your star and your work, for sure. Me as well. Always keeping an eye out and her journey, because I know she's just getting started. Miss Maggie, thank you as always for coming on and supporting the show and being a part of it for sure. Mr. DeBille, great guest. They all seem to love Saira, and like I said, this was a great episode to do. I was so looking forward to it, and again, can't thank Saira enough for gracing us with her presence. For sure, I'm always kind of getting a little turnaround here, but let's see where we're at. Everybody, like I said, this has been a fun episode to do. I can't thank you guys enough for sticking with me through 4 seasons of the show. I hope that it's really filled a space and really kind of spoke to people. My hope and my dream is to grow this as big as possible, but I cannot do it without all the amazing guests and friends that come on the show, and I definitely cannot do it without you, the viewers, for really showing up and supporting the show and all that we do. Like I said, I'm humbled as well. Elizabeth, such a great episode. I appreciate that, Elizabeth. It really does help encourage me and fuel me to continue on. doing this and really bringing it to you, the viewers. Again, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel, YouTube channel, youtube.com/Don Terrell. It would definitely mean a lot. Make sure you comment on the episodes, because that definitely helps the algorithm of the episodes and the channel for sure. But I am so always just blessed and honored when I do these each and every week. And can't thank you enough again for just being a part of the Color of Motion family. I am super excited about next week's guest. This has been a long time coming for sure. For those of you that may know who Chris Doe is and may be a follower, but I am a big follower of his content. So looking forward to having him on. It's going to be a little divergent topic, kind of, still along the same vein, but we're going to be diving more into the business of being creative. He is the founder of The Future. And like I said, if you are a follower of his content, you know he is a world-renowned speaker, really passionate about helping creatives get more business savvy. And in these times, unsure times of people, losing their job or this and that, it's definitely a plus to really know the business side of growing a creative agency or just being a creative. So I'm looking forward to that episode. That's going to be another great episode for sure. With that, man, like I said, I can't thank you enough for giving me a little bit of your time this Saturday afternoon. And I can't wait to see you all next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Everybody have an amazing rest of the weekend and an amazing week. And I will see you next week. Cheers, everybody.